Hi, this is Jennie Walker, and welcome to Closet Conversations. This is part 5 in a series on how to open a consignment shop. And today I thought I would talk to you about some of the surprising reasons people consign in a consignment shop. And this isn't anything I've given a lot of thought to outside of my own reasons for consigning. Usually I was consigning in shops over the many years that I knew that these shops existed because I just wanted a little extra money. That was it. Sure, I was getting rid of things that I knew I wasn't going to wear again. I was constantly buying and selling my clothes and purging them in consignment shops. So it was really great opportunity for me to get rid of things. And there were different times in my life I actually worked in retail, and after getting my employee discount, getting something on sale, I would actually make money on things that I would consign even after the store had taken their 50%. So it was very early on, in the 80s, when I really got hooked on consigning. But for me, it was always, I just want a little extra money. That's it. I love to shop. I like to consume beautiful clothes, and I needed extra money to do that. Now I was working full time. Been doing that throughout my adult life, but I just wanted more, and so I knew this existed. I was fascinated that I could make even higher than what I paid for something when I was working retail and buying so much with my employee discount. So anyway, so that's what drove me in. But as a shop owner, I didn't really give it much thought until I opened up the store, and suddenly I'm realizing that people are coming in there because of major life changes. And I don't mean, I just want some extra money. I'm talking about major life changes. And these are things that people have told me on their own. We don't even get to, I never even get to why people bring anything in. It's just not on my list of conversation topics, but oftentimes people feel the need to tell you. Sometimes they're just even a little embarrassed about being in there. I mean, that's kind of always interesting that they're a little shy about it, because some people are even like, well, rather than usually give it to my housekeeper. I've heard that a lot, but there's, people are really changing their attitude toward consigning and realizing that this is a great way to, get some cash out and do something else with it. And so some of the things that people have told me were, kind of profound and very heart-wrenching in many cases. I've had people who were self-professed to be going through a divorce and they need money for legal fees. People who were doing the opposite, getting married and needing money for honeymoon. People who were going on vacation and wanted a big chunk of money so they could pay for that. And people who were moving out of town and they needed to downsize rather than move all of those things with them, especially people who were going cross country, like from East Coast, West Coast, East Coast rather, and were looking to downsize. People with health issues. Now, this is something I hadn't given any thought to, but some of the things that have come up are people who were pregnant and unable to wear shoes that they had purchased after the baby had come. Their foot, the arches had fallen, and they just couldn't wear the shoes. I had several pair brand new in the box because of that reason. People have been through surgery, whether it was hip or knee surgery or foot surgery or ankle surgery, some sort of surgery on their body that either didn't allow them to wear those shoes anymore, or perhaps they were unable to walk. I mean, all kinds of reasons. And so they didn't have a need to have all of these shoes they were never going to get into again. Weight gain is one way. They had changed size, so their dresses that are size 6 and 8 and 10 don't fit anymore because now they're a 12 or a 14. So a lot of that. The recycling issue was probably one of the smallest areas that people have mentioned. Oh, I'm just trying to purge, or I feel, I watched this documentary called The Minimalist, and I was really inspired to get rid of all this stuff. And I've had that told to me, which I've seen that, The Minimalist, and that is a really powerful documentary if you have not seen it, and the two guys behind it are pretty stellar. So yeah, we're all drowning and stuff. I've had people who basically want money that nobody knows about, and this is one of my favorites, because if you're giving me something and you have the legal right to sell it, that our contract says, I'm going to mail you a check, and nobody's going to know you get that check but you, in theory. So there are people who want money that no one knows about, and they take things that they own for however they got them, and they liquidate it, and they'll liquidate it in shops like this. What's interesting is you also have people who don't want to go through the consignment process. They really want you to just buy it outright from them. And we've had that many times where people come in, do you buy stuff? And I'm like, well, I have to get very clear about, we're a consignment shop and we consign, we pay you after it sells. We have on occasion bought things from people outright, and we have limited it to Chanel handbags and Louis Vuitton handbags, because pretty much you're not going to be stuck with those. But the thing is, you're going to make less money when you sell it outright that way. And so we're always encouraging people to consign, money if you go through the consignment process. And I've talked several people into doing that, and they were happy I did, because they would have gotten, maybe a third less or half less if they had sold it to us outright. And that's just another aspect of this. So depending on the reason someone came to you in the first place is really going to help you determine if they're going to be long-term consigners. And there's been so many what I would call one-offs, where people, they bring you in a batch and you never see them again. And sometimes if it's someone who has a very specific reason, then perhaps that financial goal has been met, so they really don't need to bring you anymore. And if that was their only reason, and they weren't trying to, clean out on an ongoing basis, then they become what I call the one-off consigner. And I would say some of the ongoing consigners that we have are people who, I would say, consume a lot of clothing or go through a lot of clothing. They're very visible and in the public and in society, and they have to be dressed up a lot and all the time, and can't be in the same thing twice or too many times. And so that kind of consigner is certainly one where you have the ability to work with them over time, again and again and again, because they will always have new product for you, old product for them, but new things that they'll want to purge because they just won't be useful anymore. And so that's the ideal consigner, the person who is happy with your service and will continue to consign with you over time. Now, in a little bit like when you're dealing with money, like if you've ever met anyone who wanted you to do financial transactions with them or be your finance guy or let them manage some of your money, you're not going to give them all your money. You're going to give them a little bit and see how they do. And I think there's a lot of that in consignment, is that you get a little bit and you get a trial. We've had people I know bring us things that they picked up from another consignment shop that didn't sell, and would bring them to us to see if perhaps we have an audience to sell for them. I've seen that happen. And people who've brought really amazing things, at least amazing from my perspective, and also amazing. We know they're good pieces because we sold them all. Again, they're trying you out. They're going to see what kind of money, what dollar level did you achieve? Because a lot of the reasons people come in, besides these surprising reasons I've mentioned, is because they're not satisfied with having used someone else. And some of the key reasons that people aren't satisfied, and I'll do a separate podcast on that, is number one, they didn't get enough money for their clothes. And when it comes to women particular, I know because I am one, there's this emotional attachment to our clothes. I mean, I can pretty much tell you for everything that I own, where I bought it, how much I paid for it, who was with me when I bought it, where I wore it, and if I got any compliments. So I have this mental digital impression in my mind of everything that I have. And, I had someone say to me, I consigned X item with X shop and I got X dollars. And, they said my memories are worth more than that. And I think that is one of the most important things to be mindful of is when you are dealing with why people bring you things, where women are concerned, they're pretty much going to be emotionally attached to most anything they bring to you. And that there are exceptions, but if you get to talking to people about, things that sell, and then they'll go, well, I have one of those, but I'm not ready to get rid of that. I'm not ready to get rid of that. That'll come out of their mouth. And, I just chuckle because, I'm only interested in things people actually want to sell because I can't get it back for them once it sells. But yeah, just people are really attached to their things. And, and there's memories have value, then there's a dollar value. And I know there's a dollar value because people have told me I got X amount of dollars and my memories are worth more than that. So, when you're dealing with pricing and consigning and taking an inventory, you have to really be mindful of the consigners and them being satisfied with your customer service. Did you pay them? How much did you pay them? Were you professional in your dealings? Did you give them an inventory list? Were they able to pick up their items that didn't sell? Did you send the charity receipt you promised? All of that, being professional is very important to people. Sometimes you've got people that are trying you out that are, thinking about opening up their own consignment shop, or they're with a competing consignment shop. They don't necessarily tell you, and they want to, see how your service is, how much you priced things, get a copy of your contract. That's another reason that people consign with you. But whatever the reason, it's important to be mindful that people are very conscious that they have choices. They have a lot of alternatives, whether it's an online consignment, whether it is a brick and mortar consignment, if you're in their neighborhood or not. And, a lot of people are looking for a good experience. And I don't blame them, because I've had myself a variety of experiences consigning with stores over the years. And I knew the ones that were able to sell my things really well. And I knew the ones where I wasn't the right fit for their customer base. And I don't think there's anything wrong with matching up your inventory of items with the right consignment shop, because if you can't sell it, or if it's the wrong place, then you might as well go ahead and disappoint them on the front end, because you will disappoint them on the back end because they never able to sell. And I've made a number of mistakes in taking clothing in, meaning mistakes by the sense that I wasn't able to sell their clothes. I wasn't able to sell it in the store. I wasn't able to sell it online. So the question is why? Why is it that I couldn't move it? And when you study and analyze your data about what is selling, you'll understand that certain brands are going to move and certain brands aren't as popular in store or online or in the secondary market. And some things there is no audience for. There just isn't an audience for it, or the audience is so small that you're not going to be able to reach those people. And so I've learned over time, what to turn away, and it's hard. I turn away a lot of stuff, and I don't like doing it. I take in things I shouldn't all the time that don't fit my own criteria that I set out for myself. But people are charming, and I don't want to disappoint people. But I've gotten a lot better. I've gotten a lot better in saying no and helping people, get their items to another more suitable place. As a matter of fact, someone came in today and they had a number of dresses, and then they had this a Givenchy little, I guess we'd call it a leather clutch, but they're talking about selling it outright, and we talked through all the ideas and how much they wanted, and I just explained to them that we weren't the right place for them if they were trying to get $600 out of something new that might have been $700, and it's now used, and it's a number of seasons old, and you go online, and the most anyone's really asking for these things is about $300. So how can they get 6 if they're asking 3, and I'm going to take half of that? So you kind of do the math, and then you realize that sometimes just selling it themselves, although people don't want to do that oftentimes, would get there closer to what they're trying to get or money up front, I have to send them to a buy-sell or a buy-sell trade place, or just encourage people to do it themselves. Now, I will give one very specific example of surprising reasons people consign with you. And this one I really, really wasn't prepared for, just, again, hadn't crossed my mind. But we had people who have consigned with some of these major online consignment e-commerce companies. And one in particular, one of my favorites because I love them, is The RealReal. As much as I love them as a buyer, as a consigner, it's a little challenging for people. And this company has been referenced many times in why people bring things to us, not because they didn't get paid, they got paid really fast. Not because they weren't professional, because they were totally professional. And not because they wouldn't come to their home, but because they have such a strict inventory list that they won't take many of their items. So we got items that The RealReal would not take, meaning they were too vintage, too obscure, brands that people weren't looking for. And then the other reason was because they didn't get paid enough. And if you study The RealReal's model, it's based on scarcity. You get 20 minutes to have something in your cart, and if you don't hurry up and buy it, someone else will. You can pay a monthly fee so that you get notices before other people. They're like the rest of the world kind of thing, which I do subscribe to that on The RealReal and the Sterry Collective. And I can tell you it was a game changer in the inventory. So if you've never done it, I'm here to promote that on both platforms. Like the quality of inventory is mind-blowingly different because you haven't had 24 hours of everyone else shopping what was put in there. And before I subscribed, I'm like, I don't know what all the fuss is about. And then I subscribed and I'm like, oh, now I get it. Now I see why people, not only you get good buys, but you get really unique things. But unfortunately, if you do the average price per item, people just aren't getting enough for their stuff. And even with that initial 55% consignor payout that they have, and then I think you can work your way up the scale after you've consigned so many dollar amounts with them, things are so undervalued, it isn't enough money for people. And they've specifically said, well, I gave them my Alexander McQueen coat, and this $5,000 coat, and they sold it for, I don't know, $300 or something like that. And she says about got sick. And so I understand that. And, their prices are so low that you're going, oh my gosh, this is so undervalued. Like, it's better than any outlet mall. It's like the outlet mall clearance rack with 75% off. I mean, I've seen things that no one should see. I don't want to admit this, but I'm going to do it. I saw a Chanel skirt that I personally owned that I paid full price for, and it's an embarrassing amount of money. There are 4 figures involved that I bought this skirt, and the same skirt was like on The RealReal for, I don't know, $200, $100 and something dollars. I've seen Chanel skirts under $200. Now, you do the math. You've got a, let's just say, you've got first of all, it's Chanel, and second of all, it's under $200. So right there, your heart's going to jump out of your stomach. Now take 55% of that and give it to the consignor. And that is still going to be less for many people than if you had brought that same skirt into a traditional brick and mortar consignment shop, who perhaps would have priced it much more. I can't say for sure. But, we've gotten $2,000 for Chanel suits. I mean, Chanel is one of the most highly rated and the brands that garner the most money. I mean, I can get $600 for a pair of Chanel, ballet flats that have never been used in the box, that they don't, that might be 1 or 2 seasons old. I mean, it's insane amount of money because it's withheld its value, it's held on to its value. So, I'm going to price that same skirt at least double, if not more. So you're going to get more in a brick and mortar consignment shop oftentimes than you will in the online stores. And that brings people in. And that's just a fact. This is what they've told me. And they know exactly how they do their pricing. They know exactly what they're doing there. And they're doing such a great job I mean, believe me, I am so impressed with them and the scale of what they're doing. And I know why they're successful. They're going to go public. And matter of fact, I learned Etsy was public the other day. I didn't know it. I didn't know they were public. And so it really speaks volumes to what's happening in this secondary market. So there you have it. Some of the surprising reasons people consign with a consignment shop. So be mindful of that as you think about, the approach to your store and how you're going to address these different categories of reasons people consign. And there are probably others that some I haven't mentioned that I know about, too invasive to mention them, but there are all kinds of reasons. So knowing that this is very personal for people, I think is very important, and the most professional and compassionate that you can be, even though it seems very transactional, even though it seems like, I'm handing over a blazer, this is not just a thing to these individuals. This is their life, it's their history, it's their past, it's a pathway to financial resources that they need for different reasons. But it's very emotional, and keeping that in mind for brick and mortar is important, because you are face to face with the consigners. When you're dealing with online or e-commerce, you're not oftentimes even interacting with the people in person. Obviously, where there's a local in a local branch, it's a different store. But for the most part, the online, you're not having to deal with the people, so they don't seem real. But I can tell you they're very real. The reasons for consigning are very real and very vast and very deep. And for that reason, we do the best we can to meet their needs. And if we can't, we make sure that they know that ahead of time. So that's it. This is Jennie Walker with Closet Conversations. Thank you for joining me, and I look forward to having you with me again. If you'd like to be in touch with me, you can reach me through two websites, JenineGirl's Closet or Walker Viden Luxury Consignment, and I'm also on all social media. Take care.